So now we're going to begin working within the IAM service, and we're going to be creating and managing IAM users. So over the course of this demo, we will first be creating a new IAM user. We will then be configuring permissions for that IAM user. And then we can go in and create an IAM group and attach permissions to that specific IAM group. So I'm here within the console, and you'll see here that IAM is listed under my recently visited services. So I could either search for it, I could use the services dropdown, but in this case, I'll just click on IAM. Then I'll make sure that users is selected within the left navigation. And then I can go in and actually work to add a new user. So I'll select the option for add user. We'll go ahead and give this a name. We'll say that Tom is a new developer on our team. And in this case, we have a choice. We can choose to give Tom just programmatic access, and this is going to be with an access key and the secret access key, or we can choose to give console access, or we can do both. In this case, we will just grant Tom access to the AWS Management Console. And in this case, we could choose to have an auto-generated password or a custom password. And we're going to also set it so that Tom will have to reset his password when he logs in next to the console. So this has what we need. So we can now click the next option to set some permissions. And in this case, you can see that it gives us several choices. We can go in and add the user to a group, and we're not going to do that just yet. We will do that later within this demo. We also can copy permissions from an existing user, or we can attach existing policies directly. So I'm going to go ahead and select this option. Now we have an option in here to look at the managed policies. You can see here that it's a managed policy. When under type, you see that it is AWS managed. Now in this case, we can select those, or we could choose to create a new policy using the Create Policy button. In this case, Tom needs to have access to S3. So let's enter S3 and let's search for what policies are available. And we can see here that there are 4 different policies that show up, and they are all AWS managed. Well, in this case, let's say that Tom is going to manage all of our S3 buckets for the organization. Well, we probably want to have him have S3 full access. So we can go ahead and attach that to his user. We could choose here to go in and add tags for this specific user. This could be valuable if you wanted to document different departments or different organizational structures, but we're not going to use this for the moment. And then we can go into review. Now, when we get to review, here we can see that we have the username, we have the different settings that we put in place, as well as the specific policies that were added in. Now, you'll notice here that it also has another policy for IAM user change password. Because we selected the option to force him to reset his password, it automatically added this managed policy to his user. Once we have all of that in place, we can simply hit Create User. Now, while this was relatively easy for us to put into place, this would become problematic if we were trying to enter in a bunch of users and trying to configure specific permissions for those users, especially if we weren't creating them all at the same time. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click Close. And from here, we're going to navigate to the Groups option. And here we're going to create a new group. So here we'll call this Dev Team 1 is going to be our group name. And so from here, we're going to go in and add the Amazon S3 full access managed policy. We'll then hit Next Step. And now we can just create a group. There's not a lot of steps involved with creating a new group. Now, this group is currently in place, but it has no users attached to it. So now let's navigate back over to the Users tab. And from here, we're going to go into the user that we previously created, Tom Williams. First, we're going to go in and we're going to remove the Amazon S3 full access managed policy, because we're going to choose to not manage that within the specific user, but instead we're going to manage it from the group. So we've now detached that policy. So as of right now, Tom has no access to S3. But then we're going to go over to the Groups tab. And from here, we're going to select the option to add user to groups. We're going to select the Dev Team 1 group, and then we'll say add user to groups. Now it's important to note here that you can have users in multiple groups. That's part of the benefit. So if you had someone that was a member of Dev Team 1, they could be a part of that specific group. But let's say they're also an architect and they're part of the enterprise architecture group for the organization. You could create another group for that, and then you could add him to that group as well, and he would actually have the sum of both of the permissions from those groups. So now we've been able to walk through and create an IAM user. We have configured permissions for that user and then created a group added them to the group, and then attached permissions to that AWS IAM group.